Hello there everyone and welcome back to another movie review. This is my first Marvel movie Monday in a while. I want to try to keep this up by reviewing a Marvel movie every week, but it's probably not feasible to keep it up consistently. But if you get a Monday video from me, it's going to be a Marvel movie, so that'll be my special treat on Mondays. Today I'm going to be reviewing Venom, which is a movie that I was hesitant about from the very beginning of its announcement. I was confused on why it existed. I saw the first trailer and absolutely really did not like it. I was bugged out by Tom Hardy's performance in all the trailers up until this. I didn't see it when it came out. I actually saw it just a few days ago, which was months after it originally came out, and I was hearing mixed to negative things about it when it did come out. So as a Marvel fan, let's see what I thought about it. So Venom follows the story of a man named Eddie Brock, who is a reporter. In the movie, he does a sort of internet show where he tackles problems going on around New York. Or no, he's in San Francisco. Around San Francisco, and one of them happens to be a story about a corrupted man who I can't remember the name of, who's the villain, who runs a foundation called the Life Foundation. And they have recently just had a rocket crash, one of their rockets doing research out in space, crash back to Earth, I think in the Philippines, carrying something called symbiotes. And he interviews them, gets dumped by his girlfriend by accidentally leaking information, messes up his whole life, and ends up going into the Life Foundation, taking out one of the symbiotes on accident, and bonding with the symbiote known as Venom, and becoming sort of a off-kilter superhero, anti-hero character, which is not exactly how it works in the comics. Not a huge deal that it's not comic accurate, but no Spider-Man in this. Venom is a Spider-Man villain. This Venom symbiote was originally bonded to Peter Parker, so taking that aspect out of it makes it a little bit interesting from someone who even has read the comics. So comics are not necessary to understand this movie. But I'm going to start out with the positives and just give you my points. So when I first started off this movie, the first 20 minutes or so, I was like, wow, this actually is not that bad. I've been hearing really awkward and nasty things about the movie when it first came out. And I thought the first 20 or so minutes were actually pretty good. Eddie Brock's life as a reporter, sort of joking around with his girlfriend and doing his job, things like that, not bad at all. A little bit of interspersing of, corporation conspiracy with the rocket crashing and all that, but I was into it the first 20 minutes. And then it went downhill. It was not very good after that, but we're talking about the positives right now, so I'm just letting you know, the first 20 or so minutes, the part where it's just Eddie Brock, no symbiotes involved, is actually a pretty decent movie. And I would watch a mediocre movie about Eddie Brock's life without any symbiotes in it. Also, another point, which is a weird positive, but it's something for me, in the trailers they pronounced it symbiote, and as someone who's always pronounced it symbiote, that always irked me, and they fixed that in the movie, so that's a positive for me, and it sort of made me satisfied as a fan. The camera work and lighting and all of that are passable. Nothing is poorly edited or poorly designed in the cinematography department. It's all just mediocre, which is kind of a trend with this movie. Everything is sort of just passable until you get to some later points. The animation is just, for the symbiotes, and especially when Venom is, around Eddie Brock sort of as a suit, it's just not good. Oh geez, I'm still talking about the positives, but I'm going into the negatives. Sorry. Well, I just wanted to get that point, and then talk about the action sequences. Go pretty fast, so it hides the mediocre CG. So they're entertaining enough. They use some pretty clever, having pretty clever uses for the symbiote's powers with spikes and shields and turning the hands into swords and things like that. It makes the action sequences really creative, which is a huge plus. Although I felt like there weren't very many action sequences, but now thinking back, there were a lot. They just weren't very memorable. But they're passable, and they hide the mediocre CG, so they're entertaining enough. And then my middle point about this is that it's a very short movie. It ended at about the 90-minute mark, which I was surprised, and it did not feel like a real ending. But it's short, so if you just want to get this movie out of the way and not really worry about it, it's one of those. Now for the negatives. You heard me slipping into the negatives all through the positives, and it was really awkward and shaky, but that's kind of how this movie went. So my review reflects that. Yeah, so I talked about the bad CG. Not much more I could say about that. It's just poorly done. One of the worst offenders of this is when a actor is talking to a symbiote. They have to look at the sort of ethereal face floating in front of them, or when they're looking at a jumbly blob of black goo on the wall. It does not work because it's not there, and for some reason the actors just can't interact with them properly. It looks like they're looking past them, it looks like they're confused. It's really awkward, and that's a weird thing because a lot of movies have fully CG characters nowadays, so I feel like actors should be able to talk to an alien that isn't there and be a good enough actor for that. So that made a lot of the scenes with the symbiotes interacting with people just awkward and meh. Which is kind of how I felt throughout this whole thing, was just, ugh. There's also a lot of small continuity errors and plot holes, things that would change from scene to scene that didn't make any sense to me, and I'm honestly curious if they did do serious edits to this movie that clipped out things that created these plot holes, because sometimes it's so incoherent you think, how did they miss that? Sometimes it's bigger things, but it's mostly just a small thing every other scene, and it really adds up. The dialogue is just really bad in this movie. None of the characters really deliver their lines properly. It's really forced and awkward, and nothing really flows together. The scenes don't connect through the dialogue, and the relationships, because of that, the relationships of the characters just don't feel genuine. Even the one you're supposed to like, which is Eddie Brock and his girlfriend, who I don't even remember the name of because she's not a character I remember from comics. But their relationship, which was fun at the beginning, didn't stick, so it just kind of dissipated, which meaning there weren't very many interactions or relationships in the movie. The only relationship was between Eddie and Venom, and that relationship was just gross and awkward and nasty. They sort of made a really quick friendship after messing with each other and calling each other names and things like that, and I don't even know, it's hard to describe how off and nasty it is. That's all I can really say about it. It just was not good. Venom cracks jokes, which is not something I ever knew the symbiote to do, if it even talked, which it doesn't usually in the comics. So cracking jokes is not something I expected from this. It tries to be a comedy at points, but that falls flat on its face because it's really just a mediocre action movie with corny to bad jokes thrown in. And then also the end credits of this movie. There's a Spider-Verse end credits, which you may have heard about, but if you've seen Spider-Verse, it's completely, you don't need to watch it at all because it was just one of the scenes from the movie. But there's an end credits that's sort of talking about Eddie and Venom's life after the end events of the movie. Sort of, I guess, teasing that there will be a sequel, which I think they're already planning for one. But it's 10 minutes long, so that comes after a pretty long credit sequence. So I don't know, I guess it's worth it, but the movie is sort of just ends and then has a block and then has an epilogue, which is not common for movies that I've seen, so I don't really know what to say about that. And also, just the overall theme of this movie is just cliche. They tried to make a superhero movie, and it ended up feeling how they did, you know, Elektra and Daredevil and sort of those early before MCU movies, and even some of the current DCEU movies that are just really by the numbers sort of character, villain, MacGuffin sort of deal. And it's so mediocre. I give this movie 2 out of 5 stars or a 4 out of 10. It has its mediocre moments, which means it's fine, it's passable, but the stuff that weighs it down, like the bad CGI and bad dialogue, makes it just not that fun to watch. So I don't recommend this movie, not even as a Marvel fan. If you're trying to watch every superhero movie, go ahead, but you've been warned. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video.